Hello, welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Anastasia Lavrina. Today we will look at a powerful new force that is changing how our governments work: artificial intelligence, or AI. AI is no longer just used in science labs or tech companies. Today it plays a big role in politics. It helps with campaigns, sends personalized messages to voters, supports policy decisions, and even helps governments decide who receives help or who gets monitored. This is not just about making things faster or easier. Artificial intelligence can also raise serious concerns. It can spread political ads that feel personal, analyze people's emotions, and even create fake videos. Some worry this could lead to unfair influence, hidden bias, or a lack of transparency. In many countries, governments now use AI to control protests, manage borders, or follow people's movements. In democracies, these tools are meant to help, but they could also lead to constant surveillance. In a major legal blow, a US district court has ruled that Google illegally dominates two critical sectors of online advertising, undermining competition and cementing its control over how digital ads are bought, sold, or served. The verdict doesn't just make a regulatory milestone, it opens the door to structural remedies that could break up parts of Google's business for the first time. As pressure mounts on big tech from lawmakers, courts, and investors alike, the broader question emerges: is this the beginning of a new era of accountability, or just another legal skirmish in an uneven playing field? Let's take a closer look.
Google illegally dominates two markets for online advertising technology. That was the ruling by a US district judge on Thursday. The verdict says Google is guilty of maintaining monopolies over ad servers for publishers and the ad exchanges that sit between buyers and sellers. Now the decision clears the way for another hearing on what the tech giant must do to restore competition. That could see it forced to sell off some operations. Michael Ashley Schulman is Chief Investment Officer at Running Point Capital.
It marks a watershed moment for big tech regulation and raises real risks of a breakup of Google's ad business. There's been talk of a breakup of Alphabet itself, but now we're diving deeper into Alphabet, into Google's ad business, and signals that US courts are now open to structural remedies, not just fines.
Google rejected all suggestions it operates a monopoly and said it would appeal the ruling. But Thursday's verdict was the second to say it operates an illegal monopoly. It follows a similar judgment in a case over online search. That could see it forced to sell its Chrome internet browser. US Attorney General Pam Bondi called the new ruling a landmark victory in the fight to stop Google monopolizing the digital public square. She said her department would keep taking legal action to stop tech firms harming free speech and free markets.
There is a lot to unpack here. Joining me now to discuss this in detail is Dr. Gloria Shkurti Özdemir, a lecturer at Hazar University and a researcher at the SETA Foundation in Istanbul, Turkey. We're welcome to our program, and let me start with a question. How has AI changed the way political campaigns are run today compared to just a decade ago?
Thank you, Anastasia, for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here to discuss such an important topic because this artificial intelligence and the new emerging technologies are indeed having a direct impact not only on our daily lives, but as you mentioned, in politics and on the international arena and international affairs in general. So when we discuss about the political advertisement in here, it does make a lot of difference when we start to use artificial intelligence. because currently it's used, for example, about the predictive analysis, sentiment analysis, as you mentioned before in the introduction, based on our emotions. They could manage to understand like what we like and what we prefer. So the advertisements would come and would continue to show based on those. Of course, that they do have behavior profiling. And at the same time, they do have this kind of optimized messages that still we do receive based on on the things that we like or not. So it is this micro-targeting that's taking place right now in the political campaigns. So if we would compare a little bit the previous campaigns to the current ones, we may say that we have this kind of hyper-personalized campaigns, very fast forward campaigns, and most importantly, algorithmically informed political campaigns, which, to tell the truth, these do put a direct threat on the way how we think the information is, and how much do we have in our head right now, and who is providing us this information. Because like in the information that you gave right now, for example, Google does have the monopoly of that, but there are also other companies, and each of them has a diverse agenda, which is provided to us. And it's something important that we should mention is the fact that we are talking about AI in the last years, especially after the emergence of ChatGPT. But AI has been used for a very, very long time. And one of the most well-known examples was in 2016 with Cambridge Analytica scandal. Maybe you, most probably you have talked about that also in your programs during the American elections. And since then, indeed, it's seen, even during the Obama presidential campaigns, it was used quite a lot, to tell the truth. So since then, this technology was not known as AI, but it was used. But now it has moved towards a very broader use and a wide range of people.
Yes, indeed. And just to continue what you have already mentioned there about the campaigns and the American political system, are micro-targeted political ads powered by AI a threat to free choice or simply a smarter form of campaigning?
You know, there is a very thin line in there. It's about information. You know, it's at some point when information is provided as a part of truth and not influence, then okay, it's within the ethical boundaries. However, lately, these boundaries have been like passed too much. And what is created is that we are somehow living within echo chambers, where we can see or we can look just at the information that we prefer to look at. It's very simple. If you go to your social media, Instagram or Twitter, X, sorry, now, and Facebook and so on, whenever you prefer or you like something in there, after that you'll always continue to see advertisements that are related to that. For this reason, we are somehow forced or how can I say, are limited at some point to look at just one perspective of how things are going. So we have all of this information coming in, but just from one perspective, which makes it very, very difficult for us to go out of this echo chamber that we are living.
Well, during the 2016 United States presidential election, I guess you know the story, Cambridge Analytica used Facebook data to create psychological profiles of voters. These profiles allowed them to target individuals with highly personalized political ads, memes, and news stories, often reinforcing their existing beliefs. The content showed was shaped by algorithms designed to influence emotions and decisions, often without voters realizing how much their views were being guided. So my question is, to what extent are voters being manipulated by algorithmic content curation, and can they tell when it's happening?
To tell the truth, I do believe that they are being highly impacted right now from the data generated through AI. being these advertisements. This is just one perspective, by the way, of the political campaigns, because there are a lot of other perspectives how AI is used, for example, through videos, deepfakes, or maybe chatbot messaging, phone calls, and so on. So these are a lot of different ways how AI is used, and at some point it's very difficult for the people now to understand what's the reality and what is not. For example, just to provide an example for you, maybe in the latest elections, in United States presidential elections, there were, for example, made phone calls with at that time, President Biden voice, calling the people in New Hampshire not to go to vote. So this was considered one as the biggest impacts at that time, when the call was not done by President Biden at all. And so the people at the time, it was very difficult for them to understand whether this was correct or not, until the situation came clear and President Biden started to make the announcement that he didn't make this kind of phone calls. But a large number of people did believe this. And it's important to say also that there are differences between the ages. For example, the young generation is even easier to believe these kinds of disinformation, let's say. And also the older generations as well, are a little bit more closer to the media that they read, to the data that they are faced of, and they do tend to believe them. So the only way that we can somehow understand whether an information is true or not, is generated by AI or not, is to do more research and to try to go out of these echo chambers and not to read or to research just from one perspective, from one point of perspective, but to try to find different perspectives as well. And so I do believe it remains somehow in the hands of the humans, of the people, to decide whether what they want to believe and what may be the truth or not.
Well, let me bring one more example. If I'm not mistaken, in early 2023, a deepfake video of Elon Musk promoting a fake cryptocurrency scam went viral. The video looked and sounded so real that thousands of people fell for it. Some even lost money. Despite warnings, many couldn't tell it was fake until it was too late. So deepfakes and synthetic media are becoming more convincing. Then how prepared are democracies to deal with this kind of disinformation?
To tell the truth, I'm a little bit pessimistic on this perspective, because artificial intelligence is moving very fast forward. And on the other hand, legislations and regulations are moving very slow, not to tell at all. We have some steps taken from the European Union, where they do focus on, they are human-centered and try to protect their human rights. However, the other states did not join in this step that the European Union took. Each state has tried to create its own regulations, but the most important point in here is, for example, especially in the US, we do see this very much. We have, on the one hand, we have the private investments, and on the other hand, we have the technological development. So we have the regulation, So either you have too much regulation and stops the innovation, or you have too much innovation and at some point there is no regulation in there. So the most important issues that are going on right now, even in the European Union, even in the US, even on the other sides of the world, like Russia, China as well, it's a discussion between innovation and the regulation. However, until now, there are no, leave aside globally, but even states have not taken very, very important steps to try to make it clear how to fight against these types of deep fakes images.
Then where do we draw the ethical line between political persuasion and AI-driven psychological manipulation?
When I talk about technology, I always say that technology, or especially AI, is what we make of it, or what we are. If a state is democratic and they do focus on accountability, on transparency and regulations and so on, so they need to focus on these issues also at the time that they do develop artificial intelligence. But if a state is not a democratic one and they have different norms, so they will proceed with the development of artificial intelligence from that point of view. So, like, it is us who we draw the line about the ethics. It is the people who decide what's ethical and what's not, and what's normal, what's a norm and what is not. So as long as we do focus especially on transparency, because we need to remind here that artificial intelligence models are models that decide by themselves, and at some point when deep learning is used, it is impossible to understand how they did come to a certain decision. Then we need to focus on this kind of transparency. And for example, like when in the US in the last elections, there were created different videos, deep fake videos, and they were used as political campaign. But at some point, there was raised an issue about this, and it was requested that all of these videos be written that they were generated with artificial intelligence. At least this will help and will be ethical for the people to understand that these are not real images or real videos. So this is just as a first step, you know, like to show what's ethical and what's not. And after that, we'll see also other steps, most probably from the governments in this regard.
A bit more about possible regulation. In some countries, there is a strict rules about the using of artificial intelligence, and you yourself mentioned a couple of them. But in authoritarian regimes, AI is used for surveillance and control. Could similar tools be quietly spreading in democratic systems under the guise of efficiency?
That's possible. As I mentioned before, technology is what we make of us. Surveillance, for example, is both used in China, but is used in the United States as well. However, for example, the purposes are for different reasons. So it depends on how we decide to use these tools, whether we decide to use it for our national security or to protect our citizens, or do we intend to use these tools against our citizens. So that is something that the states themselves have to decide. But it depends also from the leaders or from the governments of democratic states that we know until now, and from their decision on whether they see artificial intelligence as a tool not just to protect their citizens, but also to protect their positions in the government. So at this point, like sometimes we have seen a lot of negative weapons, like how can I say, negative tools in the hand of even of the democratic states being used for negative purposes. So I wouldn't be surprised much if artificial intelligence is used by the democratic governments in terms of surveillance as well.
But we can say and conclude that policymakers can truly regulate AI in politics when the technology often outspaces legislation and is developed by private firms.
Yeah, I really do believe that, and I do support that idea. However, in the last development, in the last years, I have seen the emergence of private companies like no other actor like previously in the international arena. And for example, just to mention an example, a couple of months ago, there was an AI summit in France, and interestingly enough, not only the state representatives were in there, but also the most important representatives from the technological private companies were in there. At the same time, when Trump did his inauguration speech, there were a lot of big tech companies, leaders, CEOs in there, starting from Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and so on. So this indeed shows us how this private company's role has been increasing too much in the international affairs lately. So I'm a little bit scared about this increase, because like their position is more like economic focused rather than human rights focused or national security focused, to tell the truth. However, I really believe that in international affairs and international relations, states are the main actors, and at some point the states will be able to regulate how these private companies act and how far do they go. However, it depends on what you say, like on the policymakers, like how long are they willing to let these private companies to be by themselves and to work on technology and innovation.
Right. Is there a risk or of political bias being embedded in the algorithms themselves? And if so, who is responsible?
You've made me a $1 million question, because like this is something that we generally do ask, and when we discuss especially about the autonomy, especially in the warfare, for example, let's say that we have an autonomous weapon or an autonomous system, and they decide to target and to kill somebody, for example, and who will be the responsible for that? We cannot have a weapon responsible about killing somebody, for example, by mistake even maybe, but we cannot even keep responsible maybe for the person behind who created that model or that algorithm. So this is a very important question, and there are different views on this. Some of the people do believe that the person who creates algorithms or the team who creates the algorithms is responsible about the results coming out from artificial intelligence, because it is the data that we provide that makes that system, and the system is believed not to make anything outside the data that we give to the system. However, these discussions are a little bit, how can I say, questions, especially when we discuss the arrival of artificial general intelligence, which is the superhuman intelligence, believing that the people, the artificial intelligence models will be even more intelligent than the people and will be able to decide by themselves. And the second thing, when we think about the deep learning, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not always understandable how an AI model reaches the final conclusion. Like we give the data in there, and how we can go from point A to point B, and we request from the model to show us the shortest path. The model shows us a short path. However, we don't know why and how they found this short path. So put this in perspective into a warfare. We don't know anything like why an AI model targets somebody, why they think it's a target, and why we should kill the person. So, as I mentioned, to conclude this, it depends from different perspectives that people have. It's impossible to keep an algorithm fully responsible for something that they do, but it's also impossible to keep the person behind the algorithm fully responsible. And this is one of the main reasons why we don't have a general algorithm in here, a global AI governance, as we call it.
Well, indeed, Gloria, thank you. Thank you so much for joining our program today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, as we have seen today, artificial intelligence is reshaping the political landscape in profound ways. From micro-targeted campaigns to the creation of deepfakes, AI introduces both opportunities and challenges. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of AI's role in politics. I'm Anastasia Lavrina, and you have been watching Inside Politics. Stay informed, stay critical, and until next time.